Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
We're here today with my co host, Teresa, of course. Also joining us is Lisa Fuller of College Primed, and we're excited to have her with us today. Teresa?
Thank you, Lisa, so much for agreeing to allow us to interview you. I want to just go ahead for the sake of time and let's just jump right in. All right. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
I'm Lisa Fuller. Some people know me by my given name, which is Malicia. I am an independent educational counselor. I am the owner and founder and lead counselor for College Primed LLC. I'm an independent counselor, which is kind of a new phrase for a lot of people in our community. And that is because most people count on their school counselor to handle college planning. But because of the enormous workload that school counselors have, in addition to trying to help a kid plan their college path or journey, they are, I would say, the average is 491 kids to one counselor. So a kid doesn't get the kind of information that they need to make an effective plan. And a lot of kids wind up having to live with consequences because they didn't have anyone there to guide them through the process. Mm-hmm. So independent college counselors, while we don't take the place of a high school counselor, we supplement, we complement them. Mm-hmm. And we generally start earlier with a student than the school counselor. School counselor usually will not start discussing colleges and the whole plan and the path there until a kid is a junior. And in our industry, that's a little bit too late. There is so much information out there. There are so many choices. There is so much on the line, from time to finances, that you can't recoup. And so the numbers that tell us that this is a problem is the fact that 40% of kids transfer. 80% of kids change their majors. Not only once, but multiple times. So there's a need for this. And so this is my third act.
Well, something you said, and folks, this is my first time meeting Lisa, and you certainly are presenting as professional, and I appreciate that. But something you said hit me some kind of way, and you're being very professional about your statement. But one thing as a parent that I think people face, particularly in our community, certainly you defer to the college counselors, but there sometimes is a bias against kids, particularly kids of color, in terms of what they can do and where they can go, and being somehow told that maybe this isn't the path for you, and them believing that them not having the resources that they need, the support they need. Because right. I raised a kid in Chesterfield County, and thankfully my husband and I were savvy enough, and because of our background, to help guide him through that process. But I know people who weren't so fortunate. So I think that's an additional thing that's right out there for people.
And that's part of the problem too. And a lot of it can come about because of biases, but also it comes about because people know that the cost of education has increased.
Yeah.
It has outpaced inflation. So the ridiculous amount that someone would have to invest in school, a lot of counselors will protect the kid, if you will, by not suggesting some of the, what would I call them? I don't like really going along with this belief that some schools are so much better than others.
Right.
But there are some schools that have better resources for a particular major than others. Right. There are some schools where this kid, at the rate that they achieve, would be better suited to be with kids on a similar level, if you will. And a lot of counselors will avoid telling kids about that because they don't want to get their hopes up high. They don't want to put them in a position where economically they can't attend that school. So a lot of it is protection, if you will, because even for kids who attend private schools, they face the same kind of pushback, if you will, from a counselor.
Right,
Like a kid can go in with a list and say, these are the lists of schools I'm interested in. And the counselor looks at the list and knows that those are schools where, um, you know, double digits or single digit admit rate. So why even set a kid up for that, right? So they will tell the kid that you know, your list is full of reaches. Don't even apply. And I've worked with students like that who have gotten into all of those reaches, but they were told by their counselor, don't even look at these schools.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not so much just the public schools, it's just the nature of, I don't want to say the industry, but the nature of the profession, where everybody is trying to do right by the kid. But if you only have 30 minutes to spend with that kid, you don't know them enough. Okay. And you're so busy trying to protect and save. Some people save the best schools for their, you know, the kid that they like the most, you know what I'm saying? Or the kid who speaks up the most, the kid who's been the most successful at that high school. So they save those positions and will direct your kid elsewhere. So the more you know as a parent, the more you can advocate. And in my role with my students, I teach them things about college that they can then go into the counselor, present themselves as being informed, and, you know, advocate for themselves to say, these are the reasons why these schools are on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one thing you mentioned earlier when you were introducing yourself is that you and folks in your industry start with children earlier.
Yes.
How early is that?
Pardon me?
How early?
I tell parents that they can start planning for their kids' college education from birth. And that can be from the financial aspect of it, keeping up with the cost of colleges. It surprises me usually when I have a first kind of like complimentary session with the parent, and I'll ask them, well, you know, what's your alma mater? And they'll tell me, and I said, do you know how much it is to attend that school today? And they don't know. You know, they have no clue, or they'll guess 50% less than what it actually costs. And so I say, you know, even as you're pregnant or you give birth, a family can start college planning. From the academic standpoint, you can start looking at the schools that you perhaps want your child to attend. You can certainly start with the financial aspect, you know, savings, 529s, whatever your method is and your financial advisor advises you. Be prepared. Be prepared because the cost is going up. The cost of state schools have jumped. And it's, you know, something that we need to prepare for. And then, you know, everything that you do from that child from birth on in terms of reading, writing, and arithmetic, all the stuff that we heard when we were growing up, they're very essential. If your child is reading at a certain level by a certain age, third grade, by third grade, they've started to decide what level your child is reading at, what level of math they're at. And that dictates where they go when they get to middle school, what level of courses they will be in, whether or not they will be able to take algebra by the time they're in 7th or 8th grade.
Right.
But we have to be on top of that early to make certain that that happens. Typically for me, I will get a call from parents who are looking at the kid attending a specialty center here in the counties, or an independent school or a boarding school. So that typically would start somewhere with 6th or 7th grade. And we look at the testing. If they're thinking about going into an independent school for high school. So, yes, I can see. I can tell there was a question. Yes.
So they work with you in the middle school level for them to get into specialty centers.
Yes, because what you want to do is you want to make certain that the high school, your next step in school, whether it's secondary, post-secondary, that is a match to who that kid is.
Right. Okay.
So I do a lot of assessment. I'm always asking a lot of whys, you know, behind the decision and the interest that the kid has. But I do a lot of assessments of finding out what is the kid's learning style, what is their aptitude, their interests. What are those things, rather? What are their interests? What's their aptitude? You know, is this a kid who will do well in physics? If this kid doesn't like math, you know, a lot of physics is calculus based. By the time you get to high school, you need physics C if you think you're going into engineering. So we need to go in and try to figure out, what can we do to shore up this kid's interest in engineering, but hate for math? What do we need to do, And so a lot of times I will bring in a tutor, or I will recommend, some other colleagues of mine to say, can you please assess this kid and see, is there hope? Is there something we can do to turn this tide and get them where they want to be, for their career? So starting early again.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So what did you see that made you decide this was something you needed to do?
Well, I was
Journey.
a parent volunteer at my daughter's school throughout the time that they were there. And one thing I saw when they got to that third grade level, they started peeling people off to go with a particular teacher for the computer science class, for reading. And so lucky for me, my oldest was always the one who got peeled off to go to those things, right? So my other daughter's 3 years behind. So I just started noticing things like that. And that's when I started reading. I was like, what is going on? They've already started tagging kids in third grade. I didn't know they did that, So it was a lot of personal experience. And then in middle school, it was the same way. We had a teacher come to us and ask, why didn't we allow our daughter to go into double accelerated math program? And we were like, what? This was like the third week of school. Mm-hmm. And she said, she scores in the 99 percentile, and the stay 9 is, her stay 9 is a 9. Why didn't you guys let her do this? We were like, we didn't know that there, somebody had made a choice. We thought she was just in 5th grade math. And so from there, I learned that you have to be aware at all times. Mm-hmm. Even looking at the description of the courses that they give you, you have to be aware. Mm-hmm. And so my daughter was put into that accelerated class, which was double accelerated. By the time she finished 8th grade, she had algebra 2, so you start to learn things. And they were each selected from Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth to take the SAT and ACT as 6th graders and 7th graders. And I refused, 6th grade. I was like, no, that's just too young. And again, I started to do my research and found out, oh, no, it's not.
Yeah.
We're doing it for the Duke Tips. They're doing, for the Duke program, which is also a talented program for kids. Mm-hmm. And so we did that, and from there we just I just got into it. Let's just put it, after that, I was just like, okay, I need to stay on top of this. I need to understand what all this means. I need to understand these course sequences. What are they going to give my kids as opportunities? What are they going to, prevent them from being able to pursue in the event that they want to? But by the same token, I would say there has to be a balance, because you have to also know what the kid is interested in. Just because the kid has the aptitude for something doesn't mean that that is the field that they should, be going into. Right. My oldest has an aptitude across the board. She does well in any course that she takes, right? But she didn't have an interest in math. Mm-hmm. She was able to perform well, but that was not her interest. And so, people would say to me, oh, I can't believe they at least got a perfect score on that. What was that thing called? Like some math count thing that they give at the end of the year. And I was just like, yeah, she could care less. That was not her thing.
Yeah.
So you just have to know your kid and know what they're interested in.
Right.
And just keep it balanced, because by high school, everybody is saying, oh, you should take AP, this, and that. And I try to demystify all of that as well. It is not required that a kid takes every AP class. That just there's no reason for it. Mm-hmm. And because of the amount of time that it takes to do well in those courses, what you'll do is burn that kid out. Yeah. So I recommend to people to understand who their child is, what they're interested in, and take AP courses that align with that, not based upon somebody else's prescribed list of what it takes to be successful. Yeah. I visited a lot of colleges. I have visited up to 10 a year. That's part of my professional development and part of my being able to stay in these organizations that I belong to.
Okay.
And I've been on a lot of these campuses where kids at Yale never took a single AP class. Mm-hmm. Because it's all contextual. It's all based upon your school, your high school. What does your high school have to offer? And it's based upon who you are. So if you didn't take an AP class, but there were 30 offered at your school, yeah, there'll be a question like, why didn't you find something in there to take? Like, why didn't you challenge yourself? But
Right.
there's no need for you to have to take 5, 6, 7 a year.
Well, other than that's helpful, Lisa. Now, other than the academics, what else are colleges looking at? What are the factors are they considering? What are you working with students on for them to gain admission into?
Okay. Well, here's the thing is that I don't think of myself as helping kid gain admission to something special.
Mhm, mhm,
I try to walk people back from that whole dream school concept
mhm.
and focus more so on match,
Okay.
fit,
Mhm.
finding fit. You find fit, you'll go, you'll thrive, you'll achieve, you'll graduate in 4 years, time and money saved, right?
Right.
So what I try to do is educate my families on the fact that there are 2,500 colleges, right?
Mhm.
Based upon where you want to be and what part of the country you want to study, what your interests are, let's start looking at schools that way.
Okay.
If in fact we choose some schools that are strictly metric based, their decisions may based solely on your GPA, your test score,
Okay.
and we will make sure that you've selected the right one so that you get in. All right. 50% of schools accept 50% of the students.
Mhm.
So if there are 100 students applying, 50 of them will get in. Where most people call for a counselor to come help them is when they're looking at those schools that accept less than 25% of the students or less than 5% of students.
Mhm.
Okay. So with those people, we have to talk about, what do you want to do? Do you want to build your child's resume such that it looks like other students that they've accepted in the past? Or do you want your kid to be authentic of who they are, enhance the things they're already involved in, and make their application compelling enough that they're the ones selected?
Mhm.
Mhm.
There are
Okay.
no guarantees. There are no guarantees. There is no silver bullet or glowing blueprint. There are things you can do to make yourself stand out, but I say, don't do it if it's not you.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Our alma mater is Spelman College.
Mhm.
And one of the things that Spelman looks for with the 10,000 girls that apply every year for 500 slots is for that authenticity. Um, there can be neighbors, two neighbors. One kid gets in, the other kid gets in with a full ride from Spelman, which are very rare. There are very few of those. I was a star recruiter for Spelman, so I understand, how many of those are available or were available 5 years ago when I was out there recruiting. And these neighbors are trying to figure out, neighbor A is trying to figure out, how did neighbor B's daughter get a full ride?
Yeah.
They earn more than we do. The kid hasn't done as much in the community as our child. And, so there's this thought process of, what was that comparison? What tipped her over? And what could have tipped her over is that she may have done something in the community that was more impactful than the other kid did.
Right.
She may have written her own essay, which comes across as a 17-year-old speaking to the admissions folks.
Right.
Um, I'm not going to call her name, but the person that Director Spelman said that they get so sick of reading essays that they can tell that a 40-something, 50-year-old mother wrote.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
they can look at the kid's GPA and test score and know that the girl is capable, that she is going to perform well. They just hate the fact that her parents didn't trust her enough and stole her voice.
Wow.
Mhm.
So that could have kept that kid from getting a partial or full ride, if you will. Whereas her neighbor, did it all herself. She got in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as a counselor, I try not to steal the student's voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's very good information.
It is. Thank you. Let me ask you something though. So then you don't, based on what you just shared with us, you don't have students that are not willing and accepting and ready to work with you, because you're reaching them where they are and asking them the questions about what it is that they want to do.
Yes.
So have you been in a situation where the parents might have had a different idea for them, or wanted them to go to a different college or wanted them to even attend their own alma mater, and the child was not interested in going that route? And how did you address that?
What we typically do in that situation is I always talk to the parents about building a balance list. We build a list of the schools based upon the child's profile. We will have reaches, which is those schools that, take in less than 20% of students. We will have target schools, which are those schools where the kids' GPA test score, academics, extracurricular, whatever makes them a perfect match for this kind of environment. We'll have those. And then we'll have those definite reaches where they are at the top of the game for a particular set of schools, right? So that they would come in as the big fish in the pond, if you will. And that's what we do. We have a balanced list. That list could include where the parent wants them to go. And in my contract and in every conversation, I said, there are no guarantees. We will do our best, right? Okay. And sometimes the kid looks up and gets in, and then they have all these other things. And then because of their working with me and learning how to research and identify and become self-aware of who they are, they're able to go and advocate to the parent.
Okay.
A lot of times, because of those middle schools and those safety schools, they receive a whole lot of financial incentive to listen to the kid, to say, yeah, we should listen to you. Let's look at that, Yeah.
All right. I think Lou mentioned or hit on this earlier about what it takes for kids now, what the colleges are looking for. And you mentioned about community service. Are those things important? Extracurricular activity, playing a violin, a piano, being on a sports team, are they important these days?
They're more important these days because of grade inflation. They're more important these days because of schools and teachers being rewarded for putting kids in AP classes. They're more rewarded because some of these classes are taught to the test. So colleges are looking to understand the character of the kid. Who are we bringing into our community? What are they going to contribute once they're here with us? So looking at their extracurriculars will tell them a lot. If there's no community service, it kind of, makes them wonder, is this kid selfish? Will they contribute? Will they be collaborative with their peers in class? Right. So there's a lot that goes into that. And all the schools have what we call personalities, the same way we do. They have cultures. Some schools are more politically involved, their student body is. Some schools are very artsy and, they're interested in the performing arts, and there's a bend there, if you will. They're always trying to figure out how do we place this kid in our environment. As we build our class, we have 30 tuba players. We need some dancers. We need some people who are going to go out there and fundraise for the football team. We need this and that. So they were looking for things that would give them that answer.
Okay.
How could you contribute to our environment or into our community? So years ago, a kid could get into Virginia Tech with just metrics, with just high GPA and high test scores. Virginia Tech is becoming one of those desired schools, from the Northeast. Students from the Northeast, from the Midwest, from all around the country are now, jumping on Virginia Tech. And lo and behold, for the past couple of years, they've over-enrolled because they offer so many people admissions, and the people take them up on it, and they've got to go find beds and places to put them, right? But years ago, you could get in. A lot of students could get in simply by being an exemplary student. Now, community service is important to them. They're looking at it as something to distinguish that, high achieving kid from the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, once if family enlists your services and the student has gotten into college, and do you do any type of post acceptance follow up with that family?
Well, that's becoming what do I want to say, a hot service area for a lot of us. A lot of us are bridging over into that and getting a lot of training on transitional training. But what we find is if we've done a good job with our student, preparing them through this process, researching schools, making certain they understand the curriculum at the school that they're going to, whether or not they are an introvert and they're going to be going into a major where the introductory classes have 300 people as opposed to 20. If we've done a good job of doing that with them, typically our kids do okay. But there are a lot of people who call, like this year I helped a grad student with an academic, he was on academic probation. And so we had to write an appeal letter and it worked, he got back in. But, you want to make certain that that was the place for him from the beginning. It was. He had some extenuating circumstances with family members being sick and having, it was crazy, but we had to present that information to them in such a manner to say, my performance, was not where it was because of these extenuating circumstances that I didn't share with my advisor. I should have. All these resources were there that he could have used. Had he used those resources, he would have been fine. And I find that true with college students, the first year freshmen. If they are aware all these resources exist, if they are already used to advocating for themselves, they will go and find somebody to say, hey, I'm not used to getting anything below an A, and I just got a C. And if they go and find those resources on campus, which there are so many, a lot of kids have multiple advisors, and there's a freshman advisor, they're like an academic advisor. There's like all these resources because colleges want those kids to be successful too, especially these ones that are double digit, just if 20% of kids get accepted, because they want to be able to report that those kids graduated in 4 years. Okay, so they want them to be successful. And if kids know that, doing their research for college, that is part of that. I give my kids all these spreadsheets and different tools to use to compare colleges and stuff and look for information, kind of like scavenger hunts and stuff to try to make it fun. But in that table, those are some of the things we talk about in those spreadsheets is, how many advisors do you get? How many core subjects do you have to take, freshman year? What do you need to take to be considered a full-time student? We don't want to be taking 6 and 7 classes like we did in high school. College is different. Everything you learned in that AP class in a whole year, they'll cover all of that in 10 weeks. So, it's like, it's just like giving them this kind of information up front during this whole time that we're planning, I think makes them better and they don't have as many issues.
Right. Well, something that's been in the news, and that was surprising to me. I may have been just naive, but when you referenced earlier about, admissions folks can tell if a 47-year-old parent wrote the essay. What surprised me with all of the celebrities that were caught up in the admissions scandal, I've always known parents may know someone to help their kid get in. Or they may help with an essay. What completely blew me away was all of the involvement and the flat out dishonesty that was used to get these kids in these universities. I don't know. I might have been naive. I never knew that kind of thing was happening on that scale. So was that something you in your profession you were aware of happening, or were you shocked as well by it?
We were all shocked to the level of which it was happening.
Right.
We were all shocked. Part of the reason why I'm part of a professional organization is I wanted to be in a group that had ethics, code of ethics and principles and protocols. And that to me is the one telling thing. This guy was not.
Right.
But what he did do was he hired a couple of people who were professional IECs, who were members of these organizations. And some of them started to tell on him. Some of them started quitting. Even college counselors told, even the high school counselors told USC, this girl is not a rower. This girl has never done this stuff. She picked up the phone and called, and the celebrity parent came in and chastised, whatever. So people were out there telling, but no one was doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So what strikes me with that whole thing is that that's just one person that got caught. So that
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
People.
There's following that was another woman in um, Illinois who was getting people to put their kids as giving guardianship of their kids to family members who were of lower means, if you will,
Oh,
right? So that they could qualify for financial aid.
Whoa.
Okay. And this woman called herself an independent educational consultant, and she had all these certifications behind her name. And come to find out, she was in an organization that dubbed itself as financial certified people, blah, 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 blah. And that whole information is just like, people started talking. What happens is a parent will go tell another parent, hey,
Yeah.
if you let your child go on the guardianship of your sister, she'll get a full ride. Parents then go and tell the college counselor, hey, I'm working with this lady and this is going to be my address from this point forward. That college counselor will then call what's called the National Association of College and Admissions Counselor, NACAC, and NACAC will step in and start investigating. And that's how some people get exposed. So that, we have to start reporting what we hear.
Right. But Lisa, that just really speaks to parents, how parents can get caught up. It's a status thing for your
It
child.
is. It is. It is.
Certainly you must think, well, even if they get in, they're not going to be able to do the work unless somebody else, the teachers or just the professors are just passing them. But that's not going to be a good fit for them.
Right.
They don't care about that because the prestige is being able to say, my child goes to USC.
Right. And then later on, a couple of years later, you see them and they say, oh, no, she's over at so-and-so now.
What a disservice to our children as a parent to do that. So I think that's what was just so shocking to me.
They robbed those kids of confidence.
Right.
They didn't believe that they could do it on their own.
Right.
And that's going to stay with the child for a long time. That's going to affect their relationship perhaps for years to come.
Right.
Some kids were happy that, their parents did it for them because they got to go into these places like Georgetown and they did well, they flourished and whatever. They were happy for it. Other kids didn't know or barely knew or knew that their parents were up to something and they didn't quite, believe what they were doing was right. So it's going to have repercussions for years.
Right.
People know their names, so in their circles and whatever, folks will always wonder like, well, did you earn that degree?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you really do the work?
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah. Lisa, that's really all we have. We wanted to know that if you have anything, any tips, anything you want to share, any parting advice for parents of students who are going to try to either get into a specialist school, go to college or graduate school. And you mentioned a service that I hadn't thought about with your business, the fact that you helped a student with the appeal letter. So that's another service. So is there anything you want to share with our listeners in parting that might be of benefit?
The greatest benefit I think I can share with them is that time is one of those non-renewable resources. You've got time while your child is young. Start planning. Start planning from a financial standpoint. Start planning from an academic standpoint. When your kid is in middle school, start exploring. Put your kid in things that they're interested in, things that you thought they may be interested in. Let them find their way. Encourage those things, support them, help them build up their skill set, if you will. In high school, again, look at your plan, start planning. If you haven't done anything up until that point, find somebody, get the financial aspect done. Start applying for scholarships. You can start applying for essay scholarships as early as third grade. Stack that stuff up, okay? Start understanding how that will play into how you're going to finance college. There's a lot that goes into that as well. This process is so nuanced and multifaceted that it will make your head spin. A lot of my clients are professionals. They don't have the time, the bandwidth to get down into the weeds as I do. They can come to me with scholarships already and be prepared to go to a school and then find out that the school that they've selected won't stack the scholarships. What they'll do is take those scholarships and replace all the financial aid that they were supposed to get.
Right.
So things like that, to know those things in advance,
Right.
will help. But also, I would say, give your kid balance. Don't put too much pressure on them about this process, because there's 2,600 four-year colleges in America. There's a school for everybody. Okay, so
Yeah.
don't buy into the hype of what's been marketed to us, and that is these dream schools, the schools that the presidents of the United States graduated from and whatever. Those are all great for a particular kid, but maybe not for your kid.
Right.
So don't buy into all that hype. Don't buy into having the name of a school on the back of your truck, car, or whatever, on the the windshield or the back window. Don't buy into it. Buy into finding a match fit for your kid academically, personally, socially, financially.
That's excellent advice. And can you then just let our listeners know how to get in touch with you, or how to contact you?
I have a website, collegeprimed.com, and that's primed, Primed. That's ready. You get college ready. And I have an office, 27271 Suite 1B, Beaufort Road, which in this time I'm not really using. And I hope that, things get back together, because I like meeting with students one-on-one. I also have a Facebook page that just did over this quarantine time. I was like, okay, my daughter's here. She can help me.
Yeah.
So that's College Primed.
Okay.
I'm also a co-moderator for a couple of Facebook groups. One is for people getting into independent schools, boarding schools, what have you. So I'm a co-moderator for that site. I'm also co-moderator for Black, Brown, and College Bound, which is a website that we started about 4 months ago.
Okay.
And that is to educate our community about this process, so that fewer people make random acts, spend untold of money visiting colleges that their kid is not going to get into nor wants to attend.
Yeah.
And so we're starting, it's a conversation for parents, and there are many of us professionals who are in this group, to make certain that it stays on path and that no bad information is given out. But we allow parents to educate one another.
Wow.
Wow, that's excellent information.
Lisa, you have certainly shared some eye-opening, fascinating information.
Yeah.
We thank you for that.
Thank you
for the time, and we look forward to our listeners hearing the information and learning and growing from it, and hopefully contacting you for your services.
Right now, I'm taking rising sophomores and rising juniors.
Excellent information. Again, thank you so much.
Wow, great information. This is one we certainly hope you will share. Thanks for listening, and as always, when we know better, we certainly do better. Take good care.